I was still soaked when the music cut out. Cold streaks of water slid down my back, clinging to the lace dress I'd paid for myself. The force of my father's shove still pulsed through my body, an old, familiar bruise. And their laughter. God, their laughter sliced through the room sharper than the stones on the fountain I'd just crawled out of. I stood on the marble floor, pond lilies twisted around my ankles, mascara leaking like battle paint. Guests murmured among themselves. My sister smirked beneath her veil. And my father, flushed and triumphant, barked, she couldn't even complete a dare. Pathetic. Then came the applause, an ovation meant to celebrate my humiliation. I raised my chin, tasting chlorine and a hint of blood, and smiled like I'd been waiting for this exact scene. Remember this, I whispered. Every second. They thought I was bluffing. 20 minutes later, when the doors blew open and my secret billionaire husband walked in, their expressions collapsed in slow, exquisite shock. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I met Daniel 3 years earlier in a bookstore my family never knew I worked at. He was quiet, composed, the kind of man who noticed tiny details like the way I traced book titles with my fingertips before deciding on one. We didn't fall into some dramatic, cinematic love. It happened gently, quietly. Once, I told him my family treated me like a placeholder in their lives. He didn't answer, just brushed my hand with his thumb, like he was giving me permission to exist. For the first time, I felt seen. So when betrayal came, it wasn't from him. It came from the people who claimed they loved me the longest. It began with my mother's voice drifting through the hallway one night. She thinks he's just some office employee, she whispered. As if someone like him would stay with her. My sister laughed. She's delusional. Once he learns what she's really like, needy, awkward, he'll leave. We won't even have to intervene. Intervene. The word tasted like metal. The next day, Daniel suddenly felt distant. His touch hesitated. He checked his phone more often. He asked if my family liked him, a question with an answer far too tangled to unpack. Something was wrong. I didn't accuse. I didn't spiral. I observed. And that's when I found the anonymous message sent to him, from a number I recognized as my sister's burner. She's using you. You're boring. Easy to control. A lie crafted with surgical cruelty. When I confronted my family, they stared at me like I was the one betraying them by pointing out their treachery. Be realistic, my mother snapped. Men like him don't choose women like you. The room tilted, not because their cruelty was new, but because I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. They were afraid of losing control of me. That's when everything shifted. That's when I stopped defending myself and started defending my future. I didn't tell Daniel what I'd discovered. Not yet. I simply watched, waited, collected evidence. My family wanted me small. So I became silent instead. Silence is more dangerous. I researched. I planned. I set tiny, invisible traps, the kind that look harmless until the whole floor gives way. And then I married him quietly. Legally. No ceremony, no witnesses, no address. My family didn't deserve to know. Daniel had no idea he'd become a pawn in their game. He only knew he loved me, and I let him, because he loved me without asking me to shrink. They tried to sabotage us even after the marriage. But by then, it was far too late. His lawyers caught every bogus complaint, every rumor my family whispered to his board. He learned the truth piece by piece until his calm turned into something colder. He asked me one question. How far do you want to take this? All the way, I told him. Everything built toward the wedding, not mine, but my sister's. A day crafted so she could flaunt herself, so my father could parade her like a prize and shove me into the background like a chipped dish hidden in the cupboard. Daniel's identity was still private, he preferred anonymity, but his wealth was not small. And what he gave me was power. Quiet, devastating power. So I let my family believe I was alone. Pitiful. Forgettable. I let them push, mock, snicker. Every insult became a brick in the structure I was building. Then the wedding hall doors crashed open. Daniel walked in. Black suit slicing through the light. Expression carved from stone. The room froze. My father's hand stopped mid-gesture, still pointing at me like I was some circus act. My sister's groom stiffened. My mother's jaw dropped as if she'd swallowed her own judgment. Daniel looked only at me, soaked, trembling, smiling, and crossed the room. He laid his jacket over my shoulders and murmured, "Sorry I'm late." A gasp rippled through the guests. Someone whispered his name. Recognition spread like wildfire. My father's face drained first. I watched the color fall from him shade by shade. "You married him," he croaked. "Yes," I said. "Months ago." The murmurs erupted into chaos. My sister's veil shook. My mother stumbled like her world had tilted off its axis. Daniel wasn't finished. He looked at all of them and spoke, calm but deadly. "For the record, I asked her to marry me. She didn't need to prove anything. It was a silent execution. They didn't even realize they'd already been defeated. They stopped laughing that day. And they stopped calling, too. Once they learned the house they mocked, the business they belittled, the daughter they shoved into a fountain now held more power than they ever would. Sometimes I replay the moment, the splash, the stillness, the applause. But what I remember most is the expression on their faces when I rose from the water and smiled. Because even then, I already knew they would drown long before I ever did.